Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's Jenna from the Up North Home, and today I wanted to give you guys a pantry tour. So obviously I'm standing here in my pantry. This has been an accumulation of approximately 1 year. I have a video of me fixing this pantry up and painting and fixing the shelves. And what you see behind me here is from the garden from 2021. I have a few videos on the garden if you guys are interested in seeing that. But what you see here has been eaten off of for the past 6 months. So it's getting a little bit smaller, but we have about 6 months to go before we have more vegetables coming in. So I wanted to go ahead and show you guys the pantry while I still have a decent volume of products on the shelves that we canned up this year. So this side behind me is basically all from the garden and homemade products, and behind us over there is going to be the side that I keep most of the store-bought products on. So, and then I have my 5-gallon buckets. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what's in here. Right outside of the pantry is where I have been keeping my empty jars. This room eventually will be finished so that there is a big pantry out here. Right now it's kind of storage for a little bit of everything. So, but for now, I have got just my empty jars here. As soon as you look into the pantry, up against the cement or the cinder block wall, right now I have my 5-gallon buckets there. This is the bulk of our dry food storage. So I have a system going for most things that is 3 buckets for each item. Not all of them are like that, but some of the bigger items like the quick oats, you can see I have those 3 buckets stacked there are all quick oats. When I buy those in bulk, they are 50-pound bags and they fit perfectly into 2 5-gallon buckets. So I have a 3rd bucket so that when I'm down to 1 bucket, I can go get another 50-pound bag and fit them, completely fill up the other 2 and still be working out of the 3rd. That way I don't have to completely run out of the product before I go and stock up more. So once I get down to 1 bucket, I go ahead and buy a 50-pound bag and fill it back up, the other 2. So not all products are like that. I don't buy, these 2 buckets here are basmati rice, and I don't buy those in as big a bags, and they take up less space. So I only have 2 bags, or 2 5-gallon buckets of those. And then the bottom 5-gallon bucket there is pinto beans. We just don't go through as many. This 5-gallon bucket here is real salt. I buy that in, I want to say 50 or 60-pound bag, but it obviously is a lot more dense and takes up a lot less space. So down at the bottom I have a 5-gallon of popcorn. I really need to get 1 more bucket probably for the popcorn because it'll take up more than 1 bucket. So I do need to actually go and buy more popcorn as well next time I'm out bulk food shopping. I have a couple food grade 2-gallon buckets. These are actually a little bit hard to find, for me anyways, the food grade version of the 2-gallon. A lot of them are not food grade. I think Home Depot has 2-gallon buckets and they're kind of by the painting area and they're not food grade, but these ones I found at Lowe's and they do say food grade. So this bucket is actually empty right now. I'm not 100% sure what I want to put in it, but I thought it'd be useful, so I got a couple. And the top one just has some food grade DE or diatomaceous earth. These 3 buckets here are all-purpose flour, so the same thing goes as with the quick oats. When I buy a 50-pound bag, it fills up 2 5-gallon buckets completely. So when I'm down to 1 bucket, I go ahead and stock up and fill up the other 2 buckets. And the next 3 stack there is the same thing with whole wheat flour. And And the last two buckets here on the end are raw sugar. So these are just the majority of the dry food items that we happen to use and go through more in our home. And I started out with lids. I started out with lids like this because these are a couple bucks, $2 or $3 or whatever, at Lowe's for these regular lids. So they're a lot more economical, but I did find that I dreaded every time I had to go and restock my upstairs pantry with food down here, especially if I was doing something with, say, flour and I was baking. And it would be kind of a pain if I didn't have enough flour for what I was doing and I had to run down here quick and I've got stuff cooking and stuff. So prying that lid off, especially when it's new and it's not kind of broken, it gets a little bit easier to open over time, but when it's a newer lid, it's definitely really tight and hard to get off. So you definitely, if you're going to use those, you need to invest in a bucket opening tool such as this. I just got this at Lowe's. It was actually much cheaper. You know, sometimes Amazon's great and sometimes Amazon sells products for a lot more money than what you can get them in stores, so I got this at Lowe's. It was much cheaper than Amazon. And then I just have a rubber mallet to pound the lids back on. But I am trying to transition out of those lids because they're not convenient. And so Lowe's also sells kind of a Gamma Seal lid, but it's a different brand than the Gamma Seal. So I'm transitioning to these lids. These are the screw-on airtight lids, but they are the leak tight versus the Gamma. They're basically the same exact thing. I have some Gamma lids for the chicken feed outside and also for the dog food, so they're the exact same thing. But also, if you're going to invest in 5-gallon buckets, the food grade buckets, I would suggest going to a local store such as Lowe's or Home Depot or another hardware store that sells food grade buckets. Tractor Supply sells them if you're not particular about them being white. They have red with their logo all over them. And probably other stores like Murdoch's and stuff, they sell food grade buckets as well. So it's much cheaper than Amazon. Bucket prices on Amazon are crazy compared to just going to the store and pick it up. So that is where I got all of these buckets were from Lowe's. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we got out of the garden this year and our homemade bulk food supply so far. Everything that you see here was out of the garden this year. It was a first-year garden, and a lot of stuff that I grew was a first time for me for growing. We definitely had a successful garden and a successful year, and I'm hoping that we'll be even more successful this upcoming year as well, because we didn't have, well, for one, the garden it was a first-year garden, so it was not established and the soil hadn't been worked and there was no nutrients added or anything. So I think the soil is going to be a lot better this year. We've got the garden covered this year, and I also have a way to water it more efficiently this year as well. So hopefully everything will do even better this coming year. We'll see. But everything you see here has been canned out of the garden this year, or I've got some bone broth as well. So from our chickens and rabbits that we slaughtered last year. So one thing to note is that this pantry is always changing. This is a working pantry, so we are always eating out of here and adding new things. At different times of the years. Things are getting canned up, things are getting used, things are getting bought, and such. So what you see now, it changes all the time. But we'll go through and just show you what I've canned up this year. Everything that I've canned, I have pretty much everything that I've canned, except for the maple syrup, which we are hitting into sugaring season right now, probably about 5 days, and I'm going to go and tap my maple trees, so we'll fill up that little slot there for maple syrup. We made 2 gallons last year. It was my first year making syrup, and it turned out amazing. So I have tripled my spiles this year, and we will be tapping 3 times the amount of trees. So I'm hoping that we will have lots of success this year with sugaring season. But in this area here, this is where I put the jellies and jam type things. We don't really eat a ton of jelly or jam. Really, I prefer blueberry, and the rest of my family pretty much likes strawberry. But yeah, we really don't eat a whole lot of it. We had some peach. No, we do have peach butter still. And this is what we prefer, is the peach butter over anything. And we like to put those on our Edelskiver that I make with my Griswold Edelskiver pan. But I do have one thing of sugar-free blueberry jam from 2021. This was one of the first things that I had canned, and it's a little bit thick, so we're not super fond of it. But I did use Pomona's pectin for that. Actually, all of this, I use Pomona's pectin so that I can use little or no sugar at all, or this is actually sweetened with stevia. This here is dandelion jelly, and it is sugar-free as well. I don't know why I didn't label it. I guess because at the time I hadn't canned anything else and I was new to canning. But that's from 2021 as well. Actually, that might be from 2020. We only have 2 things left of it, and it's pretty good. It tastes like honey, but there's not a lot of things that we like to eat it on. So right here, I've got a couple rows of peach jelly that I made this year. We had been given a huge thing of peaches from our neighbors. It's such a blessing. It was amazing to have so many peaches. And it was my first time processing peaches like that. So we got jelly, we got the peach butter, we had sliced peaches in the freezer. My husband really likes the frozen peaches with some milk and some stevia on it. And I also canned up a bunch of sliced peaches as well for quick dessert toppings and things like that. Right here I've got a few pints of vanilla that I'm making. I started these in January 2021, and I'm gonna let them age for 2 years. They are in just regular vodka, but I'm gonna let that age for 2 years, so I've got about 1 more year to go, and I will have 4 pints of beautiful, delicious homemade vanilla. Right here I've got apple butter. I got apples from a local orchard. We have lots of fruit orchards near us. So I canned these up from local apples, and we really like it on the Edelskiver as well. We usually put an apple butter and a peach butter on the table when we have Edelskiver. Yeah, we really like that, and it's cool that they were local. We planted, because we have only been in this house for 1 year, there were no fruit trees here, so we planted, I want to say, at least 8 fruit trees this year. 4 of them being different varieties of apples, some peach trees, I think maybe like a cherry tree, I can't remember. But so our apples aren't ready, so it was nice to be able to purchase those locally. I've got the peach butter I showed you that we got peaches from the neighbor, and some apples also from the apple butter. I did some sliced apples. The sliced apples are really nice to have for our baked oatmeal. I like to put the sliced apples in the baked oatmeal. That's pretty much the only way I've used them. We don't really eat pies or bake pies or anything like that, so that's what that is. And there's my last thing of peaches, the sliced peaches, and those are in an apple juice. No sugar added, just the apple juice. So this next shelf has changed greatly. We have used tons of our tomato products already. So I have condensed them all to one shelf. They were taking up a couple shelves. So, but we've used a ton. We've probably used a dozen of these, which this is all tomato juice. and these were canned over a few month period. So when I would make my tomato sauce, I just collected the juice out of the sauce with a ladle and then strained it and canned it. And so it was kind of a 2-for-1 product, and we are obsessed. I did forget to add salt to a couple, so some of them are labeled no salt, but in general they all have salt added, and that's it. And we love them in our chili or goulash or things like that. So I did can a bunch of tomato sauces. We love it. I did not de-seed any of it or go to extra lengths. I did take the skins off, but the seeds are in the jars and they are all seasoned. So it is so nice to be able to just pull these out and open up a can and make spaghetti and not have to even add any seasoning to the pan. So love that. My family loves it, and definitely going to keep using that recipe that I used. I didn't do a lot of salsa this year, but I did, I think, 5 quarts of homemade salsa. It was my first time making salsa, and I just used one of the recipes that I found online, and we really just, the flavor is good, but we don't like how watery it turned out. We like a really thick salsa, and so I will probably do it a little bit differently next year so that we just like it more. It's kind of good to add to certain things, but if you want to dip, just chips and dip, it's kind of hard to eat because it's too liquidy. And then I canned a few things of pizza sauce. So we don't really eat a lot of pizza because my husband prefers a super, super thin, crispy crust, and I just haven't mastered that yet. So we have pizza very rare, so I only have 1 row there of pizza sauce, but I'm excited to eat a bunch of that. And that is the majority of, like I said, we've used a ton of the tomato products already. We've probably used a dozen sauces and a dozen of the tomato juice. As far as tomato products go, though, I do have all of these down here. This is salsa verde that I canned. And I did not grow green tomatoes specifically for salsa verde. So these are just made from my unripened tomatoes. When it came down to the end of the year, I had a bunch of green tomatoes on the vines, and it was time to go ahead and get rid of those. So I gathered all of my green unripened tomatoes from the vine and made salsa verde. It's super flavorful, and next year, we do love salsa verde so much. So next year I've decided to actually grow a few green tomatoes so that we can have a really good salsa verde. Alright, so the next couple rows are pretty much all pickles. We really like pickles, and I'm surprised that I have so many left. I have basically just garlic dill, spicy dill, and a couple that I ran out of garlic, and so they're just regular old dill. I grew my own dill, so the dill sprigs that you see in here were grown organically in our garden as well, which I really love to do. But I also add dill seed and stuff to just mix it up a bit and add a little bit different flavor. I did a variety in quarts and pints, and I did different style of slices, kind of some half moons is what I called those, and slices, small spears, big spears, and even some kind of baby style. So I did not grow very many pickling cucumbers, actually. The majority of these are slicing cucumbers, so they're not as fantastic per se as if I had grown pickling cucumbers. I thought we would eat more fresh cucumbers, but the amount that I had grown, I had a ton of plants, so we just didn't really eat as many fresh as I thought. So next year I'm basically going to grow all pickling cucumbers and one kind of multi-purpose cucumber, which is the muncher. The muncher is considered kind of a dual purpose for slicing and pickling. So yeah, we will have a lot, I think even better pickles next year, just because they will be specifically for pickling and not have quite the seed content as you see in some of these. Also at this end, I've got a few potatoes. I grew Yukon Golds last year, and they are probably, I don't know if I just love the Yukon Gold or if it's because I grew them in my own garden, but I really love the Yukon Gold now. So I will definitely be growing Yukon Gold this year. We really enjoyed those, and they went really quick. I'm also going to grow a lot more. The fresh ones are already gone, but I did can up several of these, so super excited to eat those. And I just made a few things of soups. This is a chicken soup. You could add rice to it or pasta to it, egg noodles, make a chicken noodle soup. This is from a recipe from the Ball Blue Book, is all that is. So, and then this is just a homemade chili recipe, just my chili. And I canned a few of these so that if I was ever sick or if we had a long day and I couldn't cook or wasn't home or the kids needed it, I just wanted to have a few soups on hand for that. So I did can those up. And the way I did the chili, I made a huge batch. And we ate it that night, and then I canned up all the rest, so it worked out pretty well. The next shelf is the remaining pickles, the spicy dill pickles, and the jalapenos. So these, I did not make candied jalapenos. I just made pickled jalapenos. They are all just pickled, no sugar or anything like that in there. And we are obsessed, you guys. We love the jalapenos. I grew about 30 jalapeno plants, and oh my goodness, it was actually the perfect number, I think, but we've probably eaten 20 jars of these. So we love them, and we put them on everything, and they are just so perfect. I got these seeds from Baker Creek, and yeah, I'm growing these same ones. These were the Craig's Giant jalapenos. Growing those again this year, and I cannot wait to can more up. We are obsessed with those jalapenos. So on the top shelf is the relishes. So I've got dill relish, just regular old dill relish over there, and a spicy dill, which basically I just added a bunch of the jalapenos to it. And this is a garden medley relish. I believe I got the recipe from the Ball Blue Book as well. And it is with summer squash and zucchini and all that. I forget what all is in there, but I needed something to get rid of some zucchini and summer squash, so that's what that is. And then I canned up a bunch of my carrots. So these are all carrots, and I just did them in slices, and I love it. I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to can up the carrots or not. I grew a bunch of carrots and we ate them fresh or cooked them fresh out of the garden. And I wasn't sure if I would want to can any because my husband's kind of particular about cooked carrots. He doesn't really care for them. So I thought they're going to be soft and he's not going to like them or whatever. But I am so glad that I did can them because they are great. And it's so nice when I want to make like a chicken soup or whatever, a stew, and I can just pour those carrots in. Love having it. So glad that I canned some up. So finally, the last thing on the shelf here is my bone broth. This is the chicken stock that I've canned. Some is a little bit watery, some gelled up really well, but all in all, I've got about 3 rows up there, and it's really dark because I like to put onion skins in there and it kind of makes it really dark. But the bone broth is a mixture of chicken and rabbit bones. We grew meat chickens with a friend, and we had a big day of slaughtering, about 100 chickens. And I kept all the legs, I've got all the necks, I've got tons of bones for the chickens, and Every time we do our rabbits, we've got rabbit bones, and so yeah, that's a mixture of the chicken and rabbit bones, and I've actually got to make a bunch more, but I'm trying to finish restoring my new antique All-American canner, and I wanted that to be the first thing I can in that canner. So, but as you can see, it's still not quite put together and finished. So, and then on the top, one last thing on this side, I've just got some alcohol up there. That is some vodka for making tinctures and vanilla and stuff like that. And there is some grape juice up there as well for emergencies or illness, or I was considering making kefir again. So I have that up there for water kefir if I ever decide to restart one. I've got a stock of some apple cider vinegar and a bunch of regular white vinegar for canning, and then a few bottles of water up there. One thing that I learned last year for canning was that I need to stock up everything that I need for canning. So all of the pickling spices, I ran into an issue where everybody was canning pickles apparently, and so when I ran out of what I had for pickling spice, I could not find pickling spice anywhere in the stores. And I had a ton of cucumbers to can up, and I didn't know what I was going to do. There is a recipe, I believe, in the Ball Blue Book for making your own pickling spice. So I wrote down all the list of ingredients that I would need to make my own spice and went to the store, and I couldn't find those either. So I luckily was able to finally get out to the Amish store, and they have it in bulk. They have lots of spices and herbs in bulk. So I stocked up, and I'll show you what I have in a second, but that was one thing that I was reminded of that I need to have in stock for all of my cucumber, all of my pickling. Also vinegar. So during that time, I would go to the store and literally could not find any white vinegar at the stores that I was going to. And so yeah, I decided I'm going to have several gallons of white vinegar stored up. I think I only have 3 or 4 right now. So I want to have, you know, several gallons of white vinegar before gardening season really kicks off, so that I don't have that problem anymore trying to fight everybody else for supplies. I am stocking up on lids right now, trying to get, my goal is 33 boxes of wide mouth and 33 boxes of regular mouth, so that come season when everybody's trying to go and buy it, I don't have to buy it, and then that'll help everybody else, and that'll help me as well. So I'm just storing my lids and rings down here underneath the bottom shelf. I just used some of my empty jar boxes to store lids down here. This is what I've got so far of wide mouth. And I've moved my rings up here for now. That's not a permanent place for them. I'm just probably going to hang them up, and I just haven't got around to it yet. But on the other side is where I have my regular mouth. So under the bottom here on the other side, I've got all of my regular mouth lids, and these are all rings. And then on the bottom shelf, I've got my 3 canners that I currently use, my All-American 21 quart, the Ball electric canner, which I love. I'm so glad I purchased that. And then I have the old water bath canner that I used and probably won't be using it much because it's not really great on a glass cooktop stove because the bottom's not flat. And I have a few of my canning supplies I just store inside there to keep it clean and stuff. So that is that. And then the rest of this side is all store-bought things. So I've got a stash of tuna, sardines, some kippers, some salmon, anchovies, and then I've got some canned chicken. And this is kind of my canning stash here. So I've got a pretty good supply here of pickling spice, dill seed, mustard seed, and then the fruit fresh and citric acid and pickle crisp back there. So that is my supply for canning so that I don't have to worry about that. Another thing that I didn't consider when doing the garden was how many onions and things I would need for actually canning. So when I decided how many onions that I was going to grow, I considered only how much we would eat in our day-to-day lives. I figured at least one onion every day for the year, but I didn't consider how many I would be using for canning. So I've used a lot of onions just in different canning recipes, a lot in my tomato sauces. So I am already, I have 2 onions left upstairs that I am going to be using probably within today and tomorrow. And then I'm done. I have only red onions left. We use a ton of sweet onions. We don't really use a lot of red onions. So this next year, I've already ordered my onions and have those coming. I order them from Dixondale Farms and they will be delivered in the beginning of April. So I ordered 8 bundles of onions for next year. So I'll have between 400 and 600 onions for this year. So hopefully that is a better number than what I grew last year. And speaking of onions, I just, after I dried them outside, I strung them up and hung them just from nails up at the top of the pantry. So this one's kind of growing. I should probably use that one, but this is all I have left of onions from this year. But let's take a look at just what we have for store-bought items. I do have that 5-gallon of pinto beans. I'm trying to switch from using canned beans to using dry beans just because it's a lot easier to stock them and take up a lot less space, but we do like chili, and so I have, these are the beans that I always put in my chili. I put 1 of each of these in my chili recipe, so I do have several of those. And just the last time I got groceries, I just decided to pick up a pack of chicken noodle soup just in case if I'm ever sick or somebody's sick and we just need a quick pick-me-up or whatever. You know, from when I was a kid, that was one of the things that you always had when you were sick. I have some pumpkin here. I don't have a ton because I grew, if you've seen my garden videos, I grew a ton of pumpkins. I just had so many pumpkins. It was crazy. We were feeding them to our cows because I had so many. And I did make a bunch of homemade pumpkin puree with that. So I only have a few canned store-bought ones. I have a few things of Rotel. We use it in a few recipes. My husband's not a big fan of chunky cooked tomatoes, so I use it sparingly for him. And I have some just basic canned vegetables, some corn, creamed corn, because I tried a recipe for cornbread that used it and we weren't fans of it, so now it's just sitting here. And I've got some cut green beans and some sweet peas over there. We don't really use them a lot, but I wanted to have them in case. You never know when you're going to need it. So I have those on hand. On the next shelf, I've got a little bit of hot chocolate. We sometimes, when we go ice fishing, we sometimes like to have a thermos full of hot chocolate to keep us warm and just have some fun out there. So I have that. I got some of these because they were on sale. they were on clearance from $5 to $1. So they had 3 of them and I just bought those 3. I haven't even used any of them yet, but I have a bunch of Valentina hot sauce. So the funny thing is, we just tried this a few months ago, maybe a little bit longer, and this was a really cheap hot sauce and we ended up actually loving it. So it's one of our favorite hot sauces, and then the supply disappeared and you could not find it in store anywhere. We checked at least 3 or 4 different Walmarts and could not find Valentina anywhere. as soon as my store got it in, I started buying 3 or 4 at a time. So now I have about 8 or so of these down here in the pantry, and I also have a couple upstairs in the pantry. So we didn't want to run out of hot sauce, and luckily stuff like this does not really expire, so that will be fantastic to have. I've got a couple, like I said, these are our 2 favorite flavors of jam and jelly type products. So I have a couple here, not a ton as you can see, but we like that occasionally. If we're out of town, we'll have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or something. So we've just got a couple of those, and we've got a couple of pancake mixes. We used to eat this kind, but we just don't really eat that anymore. So what we had left is just kind of sitting here for a rainy day when we want it. I also have some raw local honey that I purchased at the Amish store. We like having some of that around, but we don't really eat it a lot, so I've only got 1 container of it so that it doesn't get crystallized and stuff too quickly. I've got a row here of 3 quarts of maple syrup from the store in case of, you know, if we don't have enough. It's pretty expensive if you run out, so I wanted to have a few in stock since we don't have any homemade maple syrup currently, but hopefully this year we make enough and this won't be needed anyways. I do have a couple of keto-friendly, sugar-free maple syrup products back there as well, and these are like the peanut butters. Got a few different kinds of peanut butter and some peanut butter powder and stuff, and just some stevia, liquid stevia sweetener here. On the next shelf, we've got some green tea. We drink a lot of green tea sweetened with stevia. That's probably our favorite beverage. I've got some tomato products in case I don't have enough. I actually bought these before I had canned up my own, but it's nice to have just in case you ever need it. I've got a little bit of Parmesan. Most of it's upstairs, but I've been buying the small containers because I'm reusing these lids for my quart jars. The Parmesan lids fit perfectly on your regular mouth jars, so that's what I use for my spices. And I've got some ranch dressing. I mix the ranch dressing with some taco seasoning and use it as the sauce for quesadillas. We really like that. It's my husband's favorite food. So we've just got a bunch of condiments here that like to just, they're inexpensive, so it's pretty easy to stock up. My husband doesn't like regular ketchup these days, so he likes the sriracha ketchup. That's the only thing he'll eat ketchup is the sriracha ketchup recently. Up here, I've got a big thing of bacon fat. It is just, it has been used. We deep fry with it, so I just put it down here because it's so cold, and I figured it would keep it good, and we can reuse that bacon fat for deep frying several times or whatever. So I have some chicken and beef stock from the store. I bought this for rainy days when I don't have any of my own canned for an emergency or whatever. I wanted to make sure that I had some. I also have some pickles. I bought these. They were really hard to find. I try to buy, when I buy pickles, I try to just get the ones that don't have food coloring and stuff added to them, so they can be hard to find. So when they had them, I bought a few of them, and now I don't really need them because I canned up all of my own since then, but it's nice to have that in stock. So we bought some of these at Costco back when we had a Costco membership, but we thought they were really gross, so we just have those there. I didn't want to throw them away. And then we have, this is our favorite salsa verde from the store, so I have several of these. We have just a little bit of overflow from our upstairs pantry, just some unsweetened applesauce, which I hope to can my own soon, and a little bit of coffee, extra coffee. I grind my own beans, so these are whole beans, and then this is a small bit of spaghetti noodles that I stocked up because I don't know why, seems to be a shortage of pasta recently. I've got a little bit of jars up there. These are the ones with the white lids are 1 gallon jars, and then these are just reused store-bought jars that they had banana peppers in them. So those will actually be moved here pretty soon. We've got about 2 weeks before our cow Dolores has her baby and is freshened. She'll be in milk, and we will need those jars for our milk. I've got a box there of sweetener packets that we use in our tea, some coconut oil. I've got a stock of Roman noodles back there in the back. Those are cheap and inexpensive, and I would rather eat those than go hungry, so we have those back there for emergencies, and occasionally we eat those if we're really busy. I've got an assortment of hot sauces and salsas up there, and lemon and lime juice for canning, and apple cider vinegar, which we use for a bunch of things. The lemon and lime juice were definitely also some of those things that I wanted to make sure that I had in stock for canning, because when it came down to time of canning, I think a lot of people were buying lemon juice and lime juice for canning as well. So I wanted to make sure that I had some of those, so I have a few bottles of those as well to make sure that I have enough for canning. This side in particular is definitely always changing. I use a lot of this stuff, so the store-bought stuff is definitely always coming and going, and we just put the new stuff in the back and bring up the stuff for the front first and eat it. We have it in our upstairs pantry as well. So this is kind of overflow from there because of the current days. Sometimes, I mean, you never know what's going to be sold out when you go to the store, so I buy a little bit extra here and there. This shelving was here when we moved in, and one thing that is not ideal is these shelves are perfect. They were definitely designed for canning jars, so they are perfect for holding quart size and pint size jars. They're just perfect. But they're not perfect. They're definitely were not designed with store-bought products in mind. So a lot of my products just don't fit. So as you can see, like this, it's too tall to fit in here. So I have to put it back behind that support in order to put it on the shelf, which is why I put a lot of those products were just too tall to fit on these shelves. So this will probably turn into, eventually when we finish outside of this door, like I said, we're going to expand the pantry and have more than just food products, just all of our kind of prepping supplies and things in the area. So this will probably turn into more homemade storage area in the future, and I will probably put all my store-bought stuff outside on the shelves that we make, and we'll just make them a little bit taller in consideration for store-made products. I have been kind of trying to build this pantry for the past year, so what you see here has been an accumulation of a year's worth of work, a year's worth of expense, and a lot of hard work canning and gardening and all of that. So this didn't happen overnight. But that's about it here in the pantry. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this and it inspires you to create your own pantry or to add certain products to your pantry. I hope that you guys enjoyed coming along with me. I enjoyed showing it to you. It's a lot of hard work for me and a lot of expense, and I've really enjoyed kind of building this up, and it's really a pleasure to look at and just know that you have that food security for your family. So I hope that you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next video. Have a great one, and God bless.